Hey, I'm Chef Dennis, and we finally made it live. I'm so sorry for the delay, but you know how I am with technology. I may know people that know technology, but me, I'm just really kind of happy to be here. So I'm here at Orlando Coffee Roasters, and I've got Chef Bob Aungst, and I'm sorry I don't.
Gus Torres.
Gus Torres, and Gus is the coffee roaster and owner of the facility. So today we're here to tell you, and I'm really sorry with all the problems. I don't have the comment tracker up. You can leave comments and we'll get to them later. But for now, we're just going to talk about coffee, talk about the process and what we're doing. So right now, Gus, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about how did you get interested in coffee?
I got interested in coffee because, well, I was born with coffee, drinking coffee from an early age. I really wanted to open up a coffee shop. That's always been my interest. But with the downfall of the economy, I took a different route. I decided to go with the roastery. A lot of coffee shops closed, and I started this business instead of a coffee shop. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's a big difference between being in the roaster side and the coffee shop side.
I guess so. Now, unfortunately, we can't be back there with your equipment. I mean, I don't know if you can't really see it in the background, but there's some roasters back there and a bunch of other machines, and your office is loaded down with stuff, which is really, I walked in there, it was like coffee heaven. So you gotta love coffee.
Yeah.
But when you decided to roast, now how do you decide, you guys were talking before about beans and stuff, and I'd like to continue that discussion a little bit. Bob, you were asking some really great questions.
Well, I was talking, Gus has been a great, a great partner of mine and a great mentor for me about learning about coffee. Coffee, as we've discussed, is like a lot of other things. It's like wine. It's like oranges. It's like a specialty crop all on its own, and everyone can be different. Just like the vineyards in France, this vineyard is only 20 hectares, and this one over here is 20 hectares. They're separated by a dirt road. This vineyard is completely different than this vineyard, and it's all about what comes into the earth, comes up through the trees, and ends up in the product. And so I rely on Gus and his knowledge to help me with what I choose to be my coffee. So he takes that process and goes to his people that he talks about. So tell us a little bit about that.
I got the knowledge from the beginning of the process to the end. Even like we talked about the farms, the coffee tree in itself. The picking of the coffee. The beans have to be ripe. They can't be overripe. When they wash the beans, they could get over fermented. So there's so much that goes into the process of the specialty coffee that we are looking for now, which is the best of the best. So I mean, the screening size, from the size of the bean to the picking of it. So once that's done and it's dried and it gets shipped from the coffee belt that we call all the way from Indonesia to Africa to all Central and South America, some of South America, then we as roasters, we want to know what's out there. So the distributors, the people that we buy from, we get samples of all different types of coffee, Colombians, Costa Ricans, Kenyans. They're always sending us samples. So what we do is, we have a specific coffee we're looking for, a specific type, flavor, and taste for blending or for single origin. If we're looking for a great cup of coffee, so we sit there, what we do is we cup it. Just like wine tasting, you taste it, we cup the coffee, and if everything goes as planned and it's to our liking, it's a great coffee, we buy it. It's not, we can't always get the great coffee. You have to, it's so much out there. So we're always looking for good and great. We're looking for the great. If it's there, we're going to buy it. But definitely, it's just so much that has to do with the process of even getting it here, from sampling to roasting it. So once the coffee's here, once we found the coffee that we want to buy, then roasting has a lot to do with it. Because you can really take a nice, great coffee and ruin it in the roaster in the process.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I know some big company likes to over roast their coffee all the time, and they're buying up a ton of the coffee that's available in the world, but they're like over roast it. And for me, that over roasting tends to make it more acidic. Is that what happens?
Acidic, bitter, smoky. If that's what you like, we tend to, when we buy, you just had that Costa Rican coffee.
That was so nice.
Yeah. So if somebody came to me and said, I want that Costa Rican coffee, but I want you roasted French, dark, dark and oily, I would look at why would I do that? Because now I'm going to burn all those nice qualities of that coffee. It's gonna be dark. Not to say there's some great dark coffees that do well dark, but for the most part, you want to drink that coffee where it really gives you the most flavor out of it. You know, most of that's going to be light to the medium roast.
Now, is that experimentation though to see which is the best roast for
It
coffee?
is just like for dark coffee, we have to experiment which really does well dark. You know, because you know, some people do like the dark, the caramel, the chocolate notes, those flavors, and but a lot of these coffees do well a lot better in the medium. You know, and so we have you have people that like the mochachinos, lattes, you know, that are loaded with milk and sugar and caramel and chocolate. That's okay to get a dark coffee for that because you want that coffee to overpower those flavors.
But you want the coffee flavor to stand out then.
Exactly.
If it's not a dark roast, you're not going to get it. It's going to be too weak.
Exactly.
And
So
that's why they always use espresso for that kind of thing.
So it really depends on what do you like, you know? That's what we say. What do you like? Do you like a medium? Do you like a dark? We tend to cater to those who don't like the dark coffees.
Right.
So we're looking for coffees that do very good in the medium to light roast range. And so that's where we go to these Costa Ricans, Panamas, and Central.
Well, I think a lot of people have been fooled by flavors someplace when we get them out. You don't have a lot of choices when you buy coffee out.
Yeah.
And a lot of roasters roast dark. So that's all we get when we get a good cup of coffee like you're doing. It's like a whole reawakening.
Yeah.
The flavors, there's subtle differences in the coffee, just like with wines. And I would guess that a good coffee bean one year might not be a good coffee bean the next year if it's like wine.
Yeah, we learned that the climate, right now everything is changing. Sometimes we get rain, we can see it here, we have drought. That definitely affects the growth of the coffee. We bought certain lots from, let's say, Costa Rica. I use an example. We're using an estate coffee. An estate is one single coffee, from this region, from this farm. But we noticed the differences throughout the years. It wasn't always the same. And, and that's why I say it's like wine. Sometimes you have a great crop. This year you don't have a great crop. And definitely the weather plays a big role in that. Weather, fertilizers, whatever, if they make any changes, it's definitely going to affect the flavor of the coffee.
Speaking of fertilizers, how are you on that? I mean, I know organic's a big push. Do you look for that in anything you can? Or?
We've had the organic and not organic. The organics are okay, but we have we have more people looking for just regular coffee. Yeah, we have some people. Like I said, there's people that are looking for all types of. Some people don't care.
One of the wines that he prepares for me is an organic. Okay. Because I have a clientele for them. Right. So we've developed that one. That's exactly where he goes. But he's talking about the small batches.
Yeah.
Some of these estates are 20 trees.
Yeah. Oh,
they're 20 trees.
They're small.
They're small. And that's the difference between a mass producer drive-through with an awning versus a guy who's buying coffee from Costa Rica with 20 trees.
I wouldn't even have thought that there would be that.
They're small. They're small farms, and these guys get together, and they put their coffees together and take it down to get when they're that small.
Yeah.
So it's basically a blend coming to you at that point.
Yeah. A lot of the coffees that are out there, you buy Colombian in the store, the Honduras, it's going to be blend of a bunch of farmers. So the more select, the more this farm from Nicaragua, let's say that we buy San Jose, we buy from the specific farm. For San Jose, well, it's going to cost more money because and now he's taking the best out of his crop. Yeah, and then it's not a bunch of blends. That it's going to be better tasting and everything.
So is that a single origin when you do
Single origin. Single origin could be from Panama, could be Colombian.
So it can just still be an area.
Yeah,
not
it could be an
necessarily
area.
just an area.
So now we're talking about single estate. Single farm. Yeah. So you got the single origin, which you say, hey, I want a Costa Rica. I don't want a blend. I want a single origin. So I get you a coffee from Costa Rica. They sell it like that, Costa Rica by itself. But now we got Costa Rica select farm, micro lot, single estate farm. And so those coffees fetch more money because now you're going more direct, more specific. It's going to be a lot better every year. It's still going to be the same versus when you get a blend. There's a lot of things that could change in a blend.
So single origin isn't really what you want to look for, which a lot of people are putting now on their labels. It's like that natural label that anybody can pretty much throw on. You want to be a little more specific about what you're
Well, it goes, if you buy coffee at the store and then you move up to a single origin, that now this is great coffee. And then once you go to the single origin and you go to the micro lot and we get something great, then you're ready to move away from the single origin to now select lot, select farm.
Great example. Last night, Kristen and I were at dinner last night. One of our favorite restaurants. They have their own bottled wine. We've always gotten that bottled wine. It's been a great Chardonnay for us. Drinking it last night. We haven't been there in a couple of months, and we've been drinking some really, really great wine. And I'm drinking it, and I kind of put it aside. I didn't say anything. As we're about to pour a second glass out of it, Kristen said, "Did they change their wine?" I said, "You know what? I don't know, but I know what you're talking about." And we talked to the bartender, and we talked to him, and it came down to, I think what it was is just that we had been drinking much better wines.
You changed your palate.
And so our palate got more adjusted to a better wine. And when we drank that, when you don't notice it until you go backwards.
Yeah.
And so if you were to drink, I only drink our coffee. That's all I drink anymore. And so for me to it happened at breakfast the other day. We had another cup of coffee and we couldn't even drink it. This is just awful.
So now you're a coffee snob.
We are coffee. Yeah. I've been a snob of many things for a long time, but if it's a quality product, then I'm okay with it.
I know I am a coffee snob. I don't really drink much at all anymore. But when I get a cup of coffee, it better be hot and it better have some flavor.
And it better be good.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
No, and don't give me this crap about, well, it's 185 degrees. I wanted 198, 200 degrees in there.
Yeah.
Serve me a
nice
hot coffee. Yeah, hot coffee. Yeah. And I think coming from restaurants, I got spoiled in that because our coffee brewers at restaurants always brew a freaking hot cup of coffee.
So you can't drink it till 4 hours later.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll hold up.
Nothing will irritate me more than warm wine and too hot coffee.
Oh. So too hot is not good, but in that range where you can, and I drink it black. So I mean, if it's not hot to me and I drink it black, I can't imagine what Lisa was getting when she puts cream in hers. So it's not.
Well, now that's a point that I didn't know either. Is our flavored coffee that we do? We do a French Renault, and then we do a seasonal limited edition one, which is often a flavor. Last time we did a chocolate cherry cordial, and I learned this from Gus that flavored coffees need a little bit of cream and a little bit of sugar. Right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it does. It just brings the flavor to life, because I mean, you're already drinking flavored coffee. Why not add the cream and sugar?
Go all in. Yeah.
And so so definitely I encourage those who drink flavored coffees that add the cream and sugar. You see how that flavor comes to life. We just did a cherry, was a blueberry. I'm sorry, we did a blueberry. Nice. Yeah, and you could get blueberries naturally from coffee. Ethiopian Horar has these natural blueberry notes in it. And when I was tasting this blueberry coffee with it just reminded me of the Ethiopian. Of course, here's a natural, here's an added flavor. We had a choice. We would go with the natural Ethiopian Horar, so you can taste strawberries. Ethiopian. Wow. So there's coffees out there that you can get some of these flavors naturally. But we can't get a chocolate cherry out of the coffee plant. But definitely I encourage those who drink flavored coffee, go ahead and add the cream and the sugar.
Well, that's a good thing to know, because I stay away from flavored coffees because I drink them black and they just never quite seem right. But I have no problem getting a latte, and having them pump caramel into it. So I need to start rethinking that if I'm gonna drink a flavored coffee, it's okay to put a little cream.
A little bit of cream. You don't have to go crazy. Yeah. But it brings out, and when we do events that feature my coffees, whether it's a coffee cocktail, whether it's a coffee drink, as an aside to the event, I always do a little bit of an educational piece with my guests. And here, try it black, and now try it with just a little bit of cream and a little bit of sugar. It makes such a huge difference. And especially to a lot of coffee connoisseurs who drink it black.
Now, I do tell you though, if you have a great coffee, like you came here and I told you drink that Costa Rican, black. No sugar, no cream, because I really want you to taste the coffee. Right. And that's the opposite. It's like leave the cream and sugar away.
Absolutely.
You drink
anything but a flavor. Yes, that's the only thing that I encourage.
Yeah. So so now we roasted the coffee. We have a great coffee. It's roasted. Small roasters like us, we can really give you what the customer wants. If you want a dark coffee, we're able to do that. Like I said, if you want a medium, if you want a blend, we're able to do that. Versus the larger companies, they already got, they can't roast 1,000 pounds for you and just change up the roast. They're gonna. So that's where a small roaster is able to really. It's not a challenge for us to make what you want. So you come to us like, listen, we're looking for this type of coffee, for this espresso. We want this to taste like this. We want it to be this dark, this medium, and so we're able to do that. We'll get different coffees together. If you tell me the flavor profile that you're looking for, we want some chocolate in there, some caramel. We want it a little smoky. So we're able to do that with the roasting. So then we created a blend. We created a coffee for you, and now we package it for you. Now it's up to you, the end user, the coffee shop or at home, to grind that coffee right, to brew it right. Because now you got a great coffee, you got roasted right, and now you can still mess it up.
Let's talk a little about home grinders. What do you recommend?
Let me see. I only used a few.
Okay.
So, definitely bird grinder, not a blade.
Right.
It's definitely going to give you, we're trying to grind the coffee, be consistent in the grind. So the more consistent in the grind, the better cup of coffee you're going to get. What brand? There's so many different brands.
I know. I spent almost as much on my grinder as I did on my coffee maker.
Mhm.
I mean, because I knew it had to be, I didn't want the beans getting too hot while they're getting ground.
Yes.
Right.
Because then you're cooking them some more.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the burr, I knew from all the reading I did that was the way to go. So.
Yeah, and every coffee you're going to have to adjust the grinding, Some coffees do well, fine. Others you have to grind it coarse. If you're doing an espresso at home, if you just open that bag today, just because you set it to a specific grind, tomorrow you might have to make adjustments.
Really?
Yeah, depending on the heat, how here we have humidity.
Yeah.
So depending how humid it is, you might have to adjust your grinding to that. So there's definitely a lot of variations even within grinding, but that's the fun part of it. That's where you get to have fun, and you get to experiment at home and with a grinder, and then from there you go to a brewery. Me, I have like 5 or 6 brewers at the house.
So what's your favorite?
What's my favorite? I got this one now I'm using. It's called an Aeropress.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so Aeropress. You put the coffee in there. It comes with a little filter. I like my coffee strong, and like you were talking about temperature. So I temp my water, I pour it in there, and I let it sit for my 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then I just push it down into the cup, and it extracts so much flavor out of it. It's very simple, and it takes 4 or 5 minutes, but I have, if you really love something great, want to take a little more time to do
Absolutely.
that.
It's just like we do in cooking. So it's like we do in culinary.
Yes.
The reasons that I love working with Gus is he's no different to me than any other small farm or small partner that I have. I go to them for their quality, and then I try not to mess it up. And then you get that quality and you bring it home, and you prepare it the same way that you would prepare any other quality ingredient. You don't just take it and throw it in something just because it's good. You have to give it the respect that it deserves. And if you want it to be great, take time to let it be great.
Okay.
Do it the right way.
Yeah, I have a Technoform at home that I'd gotten.
You like that?
I like it. It's good, but I think now sometimes I'm looking at the pour overs and some of the other methods. So that's what I was asking you, but I mean, I want to go to that.
Experiment. You'd be surprised that coffees. You could brew 5 different methods, and it's going to be, you might like it.
Different results.
Yeah, 5 different results.
I will tell you this.
We 3 may like 3 different ones.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's our palates and what we educate them. But when we first moved here, I had to fly down early to scout out and buy stuff for the house, and I didn't have a coffee maker, and I wasn't going to keep running back and forth. So what did I do? I bought a cheap one at our favorite store, Walmart. Which not Walmart's wonderful. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I shopped.
What was the results?
Oh my God, it sucked. The coffee was so bad.
Was it bitter?
It was bitter. It didn't have flavor. It wasn't hot. It was like the worst cup of coffee I've ever had. I would have been better off just.
They have a great return policy.
They do, but I didn't return it. It's sitting on the top shelf in our room,
Waiting to be a housewarming gift, not mine. I know.
it definitely, it's I say you got to spend a little money.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go cheap when it comes to getting great results from good coffee. You have to spend a little money.
Yeah, if you're spending money on your coffee, you know, you got to spend some money on
the
the coffee
equipment.
maker.
You're going to buy it most times one time in your life.
Yeah.
Two most.
Yeah. Unless you're like me and like toys and want to buy a new one every few years just because you can. Other than that.
So, you know, the next thing we'll talk about is, you know, the freshness of the coffee. You know, when you buy coffee from a roastery, we tell people our coffee is too fresh. You got to let it, it's a resting period.
Yeah.
If I roasted the coffee and you tried it today and then you try it tomorrow and the next day, you see how that coffee comes to life.
I did that when we first started working together.
Yeah,
I did exactly that.
Yeah.
And he told me, so this is what you're going to do. Give me this coffee. You know, we roasted it today. You watched us roast it.
Right.
So you're going to have some tonight, have some tomorrow, have some the next day, have some the third day, and then call me. And then we'll talk about it.
So what is it, about a 3-day rest then?
You could 24 hours, anything after 24 hours, you know.
Okay.
But you see how it changes the chemicals in the coffee itself. It gets better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then there's a period that now is not so good. You know, a week later, 2 weeks later, every time you open and expose that coffee to oxygen, it just changes the coffee, especially if it's ground. If you're buying it ground already, you know, it just has, it lives, the life span of that is just that much less. Whole bean coffee is going to last a little longer. So it's recommended that you grind it at home, your beans. But if you can't, we'll grind it for you. But, you know, once again, spend a little money, get a grinder, and you're going to see that you're going to have a better all-around experience with the coffee. Now you got the nice fresh beans, fresh roasted, not from the store. You never know how long it's been there. By the time it gets to the warehouse, you know, it could be months. And then, you know, we really love coffee. You want to go try to buy it from a local roaster, and even then, you know, with us, 1 or 2 weeks, you know.
We've never. It's like it's like the corks they get you can buy for wine bottles.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood that. I never not finished a bottle of wine. I've never gotten coffee from Gus that ever got to the point where it was old.
Yeah.
It's gone before it gets even close to that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the part with
If
that.
you're going to open the wine, drink the wine.
Drink the wine.
I saw
What's
a
the thing in it?
cartoon
I don't get
and it had a picture of a woman holding a bottle. It goes, I hope that someday they make a bottle big enough for 2 people to share.
Yeah, exactly. Well, his coffee is just like that.
Yeah,
Our
and you know what
Yeah.
happens with wine? The oxygen just ruins it.
It does.
And same thing with coffee. It's just it gets stale.
Once it's
you know?
open, you might as well
Yeah.
finish it.
Well, let me ask you about beans then, because I remember, and it may have been wrong, but I remember reading that a bean should have a little wetness to it sometimes. Or
Wetness. They probably talk about oils.
the
Oils coming
out,
to the
or
surface.
the bean should be dry. which
No, that comes with the roasting. The darker you roast it, it comes to a point that the oils come to the surface. So that necessarily doesn't mean the coffee's fresh.
Gotcha.
You know, that's just, fortunately for me, before, you know, we have about 30, 40 years experience with all the, you know, we get with other roasters and we talk about roasting and everything. So there's a lot of experience here. And you know, at first you have these misconceptions. I used to look for that dark, oily coffee before, you know, I knew any better. That's what I thought. I was like, oh no, I want that one. That looks fresh.
Yeah.
And the other one looked old to me. You know, the dry beans that I roast now that I love so much. So yeah, that's a misconception. You know, that comes from the roasting. Oils, darker the more we roast the coffee and darker it is, oils come to the surface. You're gonna get that next day, 2 days, you know. So that doesn't mean it's not gonna do anything. No, not when it comes to.
So I guess the fact is that when I was younger and I drank dark roasted coffees more and enjoyed that flavor. Now that I'm older, I can't take the acidic.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember growing up, but one restaurant I had was Kona, and the first few days you drank it, it was when Kona was really Kona. 30 years ago, and my teeth would hurt because it was so rich and so dark and so heavy. And then after a couple of days, everything else tasted like water, the coffee you would drink. So it's just a matter, I guess, of what you get used to, what you drink, what you like.
Yeah, and that's it. Now you have so much variety that you can just change. You know, it's just you drink. Let's say you drink Hawaiian Kona, you could look for some other coffees and see what's out there, because we're able to get a hold of so many different coffees nowadays. Before you couldn't, you know.
Now, can people order from you via
Yeah, OrlandoCoffeeRoasters.com. You know, they can order online.
Okay.
Everybody wants to come here and just enjoy the experience.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody that lives in Orlando wants to come to the warehouse. Like, listen, it's a warehouse, but they want to come here and talk coffee. You know,
you hit it pretty well. I'll give you that. Okay. You know, if you make it here, it's definitely worth the trip to come in and say hello. Okay. Yeah. You're going to drive by it 2 or 3 times like I did.
definitely. But we do a priority mail, 3-day shipping. You live in California, no problem. You live in Seattle, no problem.
But if they're here in Orlando,
Especially in Seattle.
yeah, I know, right? They send us some real coffee.
We'll send you some real coffee.
Let me tell you, you would think, wouldn't you? Well, let's talk about how you guys got together and how you decided on your coffee blends.
Well, I was introduced to Gus through a mutual friend in the coffee business, and he knew that I was looking to have a private line that represented my quality and my standards, and I chose Gus over anyone else that I spoke with because of his quality, his reputation, and the product that he provides to me. And one of the things I love about working with Gus is we have a great relationship. We have a great conversation. It's just like talking with any of my other purveyors, whether it's vegetables and produce, or whether it's pork, chicken, beef. You know, this is what I'm looking for. This is the quality of what I'm looking for. This is, in this case, what I would like it to taste like, what the notes would be. And this is what I and my clients are going to do with this coffee. We're not just going to drink it. We're going to use it in recipes. So it's going to have multi-use. So we talk and we get together on, okay, well, this is what we're looking for this batch. And we have 3 core lines that we use. The Ethiopian Yoga Chef, we have a Papua Guinea, and we have a flavored coffee. We do a special limited edition. And use those in recipes. And so I chose Gus based on that criteria. He's another one of my partners in Oak that I get great product from, offer to my clients online and in my events, and then use in recipes as well.
Cool. Now, how did you decide what coffees to use? How did you?
I went exactly with what Gus recommended. We had a long conversation about it. What's your clientele? What's your demographic? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to have represent you? And he researched me and figured out who Chef Bob was. He said, okay, for you, this is you. This is your coffee. This is not everyday coffee. This is great coffee. And this is what, if I were you, I would want it. And that's how I picked it.
And people can find your line on your website.
Absolutely.
Along with your gluten-free flours.
Along with my gluten-free flours.
And we'll need to talk about that.
We'll talk about that in the future. That's
for sure.
Great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we may have to go do one of those cupcake tastings when I'm off this crazy diet. Oh Lord.
Yep.
But well, it's all about relationships.
It is.
And I think as a chef, we understand that because all of our lives in business, we've dealt with relationships.
Yep.
Where some people may be new to them to know that they can come to Gus and say, hey Gus, this is what I want to do. What can you do for me?
Yeah.
Now, as a small restaurant, how much coffee would I have to buy from you at one time? Like I say, I'm supplying, is there a short minimum if I wanted you to develop a coffee for me?
If I develop coffees for a restaurant, it all depends how easy they want it. We could do a frac pack, which is a 2-ounce, 2.5 ounce, coffee for you. We sell it by the box, it's a 40 count. So minimum, we do minimum runs of 5 boxes.
Well, that's not much.
So that's not much, for a restaurant. Yeah. So that's what we like to push for. And I always say that, like you said, what do you want? Now, it's not what you like, what your customers
What do you
like.
want?
Yeah.
Right. What do you want to represent you?
That's where we focus. So what's your clientele? What do they like? Because that's what we're really trying to cater to and to please. And so that's what we look for, because when it comes to a restaurant, I say if you start great with a great appetizer, the food is great, why not finish great?
Exactly.
With a nice, great cup of coffee.
And people remember the last thing used to annoy me like crazy is they were talking about the coffee or they were talking about the dessert.
Yes.
What about the entree? What about that? Really?
The appetizer.
I spent 38 hours on that sauce. You dip bread in it. You don't even remember.
So it is important. I mean, to finish a meal,
it is.
A good way. And then now do you do decaf as well?
Yes, we do. We do. We have a variety of decaf, Swiss water, processed Colombian decaf. We don't have a lot of decaf. Most of the, they're gonna ask for regular coffee. But we do have the decaf here. But we focus more on the regular coffee. But we do care about those that drink decaf.
Well, again, for years to me it was brown water, and now as I get older, it's like, I want coffee, but I'm going to be up all night. Let me have a cup of decaf.
Or you could do half and half.
That's
I
true.
recommend that too. Yeah, cut back a little bit, wind yourself down from that.
Well, the problem is if it's not too late, it's usually easier for me just to do a quick espresso. So I do a double shot of that, which is
And that puts you to sleep, huh?
Completely
No.
discounting the entire thing.
it depends on where I'm at in the day, but I can go right to sleep after a double shot of espresso.
You see, some people can't.
Now later on that night, it's a
No.
whole other story.
Yeah.
But right away, yeah. So I mean, it depends. I have to feel how I am and what coffee I drink. But
And do you have some teas too now? Are you
Yeah,
working
we're
with some?
we're
you're
working on some
experimenting
teas.
with
Yes,
some
we
tea,
are.
right?
We got some samples coming in. We definitely trying to be different. Everybody's got a line of tea, so we're working with different companies. Got samples coming in. We're really looking forward to that. So we got once they come in, we'll sample them and put them against some other teas, and we're trying to.
yeah, I think we're getting drowned out a little. The noise on this side is fine.
We got a compressor just kicked in.
No problem.
Yeah. So.
So it'll be exciting, and I think we'll talk about that too for the Chef Bob line.
Yeah.
To offer teas in that as well, because we have a lot of tea. It's just exactly like we talked about today. Just as unique as coffee, just as unique as wine, just as unique as many of the other things that we have that we offer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, great. So we're going to say goodbye because it is just about time anyway. We've learned a lot about coffee, and it's been great to visit with you, Gus. Thank you so much. And Chef Bob, thank you. And
Welcome.
Chef Bob will be on around the kitchen table in 2 weeks, so we'll get to see him then in his new house and his new kitchen. So I'm excited
Very
about
exciting.
that.
Fun.
Excellent.
So thanks a lot for coming on the road with Chef Dennis today, and
Bye,
we'll see you
everyone.
soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.